Good morning, everyone.
Hi, Lydia. How are you?
We're good.
Hi,
We're good.
Lydia.
Nice
Okay,
to
so-
see you.
Hi,
Gladys,
Sammy.
I'm gonna
thank you,
mute everybody. Okay, Mr. Bensoussan and Gladys, just unmute yourself after that, okay?
All right.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't see Adelia. I want to see Adelia. Okay, I am unmuted. So Viola, are you ready for me?
Ready when you are.
Okay, I am ready. Thank you. Okay. Viola, if you see Charles Shamey, you tell me,
Okay, well,
because he's in a meeting and we invited him to give the opening remarks. He said if he can go out of the meeting, he will do it.
okay, I'll send you a message if I see him, okay?
Yeah, okay, thank you. So, hello everybody. Welcome to the Women's Learning Group of the Spanish and Portuguese Synagogue, Montreal. Today is Wednesday, May 25th, 2022, 24 ER 5782. It is our fourth session of Series 26, a program created by Rabbi Shachar Orenstein 13 years ago. Following Our Lady's Bat Mitzvah celebration. We'll enjoy with great honor the presentation of our friend, Professor David Bensoussan, invited by engineer Albert Herskovich with thanks. Dr. Bensoussan will share with us his recent research about Jewish Spain, a topic that will interest all of us to learn and enjoy. Previously, we were honored twice by Dr. David Bensoussan in our synagogue with great presentations. Our next Wednesday's speaker will be Maitre Alan Murad with the same Zoom details for next Wednesday. In 2 weeks, we will have a musical session with our Reverend David Ben Lolo to celebrate our accomplishment in completing our wonderful Spring Series 26. Everyone is invited. Details the same Zoom as today and every time. It will be again at 10 o'clock. I would like to invite now Gigi Bitton to tell us a few words about the biography of Dr. David Bensoussan. Gigi Bitton, bevakasha bechavod.
Right. I'm very pleased to introduce or inform everybody of Dr. David Bensoussan's biography. In brief, this is a brief biography, but it is an impressive one. So Dr. David Bensoussan, a PhD in electrical engineering from McGill, has been a professor at the École de Technologie Supérieure de l'Université du Québec since 1980. Dr. Bensoussan has served as president of the Communauté Séfarade Unifiée du Québec and has been involved in philanthropic and community organizations for many years. He has also served as a member of the Cross-Cultural Roundtable on Security of Canada and of the Selection Advisory Board at the Immigration and Refugee Board of Canada. He has published extensively in the telecommunications and energy fields and has filed a number of patents. He has also authored several books. So here my husband happens to have this particular book, Le Livre d'Isée, which is not listed here. So I'm going to include it. Il a publié de nombreux ouvrages dans le domaine des télécommunications et de l'automatique et déposé de nombreux brevets. Il est également l'auteur de plusieurs volumes littéraires, dont des commentaires de la Bible, two, I see, un livre de souvenirs, des essais historiques, des romans historiques et un livre d'art en collaboration avec Asher Knaffel. So, as I said, quite impressive. I give it back to you, Gladys.
I would like to add also that Dr. Bensoussan lived in Israel like me, but not at the same time. He went to the army and he studied in the university in Israel. Right? Am I right? And he speaks Hebrew, of course, in addition to the French, English, Arabic, and who knows what more. It's a great honor for us. A great honor. I am inviting Dr. David Bensoussan to show us what he would like to share with us, all the beautiful things. Dr. Bensoussan, bevakasha bechavod.
Eh bien, bonjour à tous et puis bienvenue. So today it's going to be a virtual tour of Jewish Spain. Or let me share with you my screen. You have to let me share my screen.
Yeah, just 1 second.
Sure. Okay. Voilà. Can you see well?
Yes.
Yeah. So today is going to be a virtual tour of Jewish Spain, more, I would say, a visual tour of Jewish Spain. Obviously, the topic is extremely vast, and I have a lot to say, so I'll try to focus on, namely, 4 historical cities, Cordoba, Toledo, Sevilla, and Granada. What you're going to see now is simply some personal notes, but I don't have the right for all the photographies. So those are called notes personnelles. That means when you're taping this, you can send me the tape. You cannot put it on a website because I don't want to be sued because I took a picture from here or there without asking permission. It's complicated. So I would rather that stays between us. We can send the taping individually to persons, but not put it on a website. All right, so Jewish Spain, what do we know about Spain? Spain, first of all, we know from the start from the time of the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians used to trade in the Mediterranean up to the Atlantic. And as you can see here, they were also in Spain, in Cartagena. Carthage is also Karat Hadeshet, new city, same thing here. And in fact, many people think since Phoenician and Hebrew were cousin languages, the name Iberia might come from Ivri. That means they have crossed the sea, the Mediterranean. And there are a few traces of Phoenicians, but again, this is specific archaeologists. We know more about Spain in the time of the Romans. You see here when the Roman Empire was at its best under Augustus, Spain was basically part of the Roman Empire. And in fact, the name Spain, according to Abraham ibn Ezra from the Middle Ages, come from Hispania. That means the island of rabbits. And in fact, the first coins of Spain I discovered have also always a picture of a rabbit inside. Anyway, so Spain was part of the Roman Empire after the Punic Wars. Then what happened later on in the first centuries, Europe is going to be invaded by many populations. The Huns coming from Asia. You have the Goths, Visigoths from the east, and Ostrogoths from the east. The Ostrogoths are basically going to finish the Roman Empire, destroy it completely, and the Visigoths will end up from Spain. And establish a kingdom there. And when they establish a kingdom, this kingdom now becomes, later on, is going to become part of the Byzantine spectrum, because they were Christians, but not necessarily, they didn't believe in Trinity. So basically, they were in competition with the Byzantine Empire at the end, when King converted to the concept of Trinity, and therefore, since then, they became part of the Roman Empire, of this new Roman Empire, which is Byzantium. And at the time, when it was the case, the laws that were in Byzantium were applied in Spain. And therefore, this new kingdom in 589, the new Visigoths, started to apply anti-Jewish laws, and many Jews left Spain for Morocco. And as you can see now, there's no more Roman Empire. It's dislocated, but Byzantine Empire is still there. Later on will come, I'm skipping a few periods because time is lacking, but nevertheless, the Arab invasion started in Arabia, 7th century, and simply the Arabs conquered basically the Middle East in no time. One of the reasons of their success is that for centuries, Byzantium and Persia were fighting wars until they were completely exhausted, and the Arabs had no difficulty conquering the place. But when they come to North Africa, you see here, Kairouan here, 670, they'll have to wait 40 years before they can get to Spain, because there was opposition here, because North Africa at the time was partially Christian, partially Jewish. First, a Christian king will oppose the Arabs, then he'll be defeated. Then a Jewish queen called Al-Kahena will oppose the Arabs. Many victories, but at the end she lost a battle, and the Arabs continue. And then the Jews decide, since many of them were in Spain, to help the Arabs conquer Spain in 711. So the Arabs continue their conquest until Poitiers in France. And this is well known in history. In 742, Charles Martel defeats the Arabs. The truth is not exactly that, because if you read the story of the battle, you realize that the morning of the battle, the Arabs and the Berbers started to fight each other. The Berbers are the indigenous people of North Africa. The Arabs came from Middle East. So there was always problems. In fact, that problem, the tension between Arabs and Berbers, is one of the reasons that Spain is going to be lost by the Moors. So now we have a conquest of Spain, almost all of Spain, but a small place in the north, because they didn't finish the conquest, and there's an Umayyad Caliphate. When I say Caliphate, that means different. That means that until 929, it was an emirate, like it was like some principality of some kind. But in 929, it becomes a Caliphate. Caliphate, there was a Caliph in Baghdad at the time. That means they have nothing to do with Baghdad. They're completely independent. The same thing. Before that time, Surah and Pombebita in Babylonia were the big Jewish center, and everybody referred to them. So now Spanish Judaism is going to flourish, and doesn't need to refer to necessarily to Babylonia. It's going to have his own masters of exegesis and philosophy and so on. But the problem is that tensions between the Arabs was very big. They dislocated in 1031. Simply, they divided in 227. Why? Because they didn't agree among themselves. They didn't unite. They were disunited. And this, on one side, you have the caliphate, which is separated in 27 small kingdoms. And at the same time, you have Christian kingdom gaining ground. And you see through the centuries, they advance in the south more and more. This is called the Reconquista, the Reconquête. They conquer again Spain. And by the end, there'll be only the Kingdom of Granada, which will be simply conquered in 1492. Okay, a few pictures on the Visigoth area. That means the Christian area before the Arab came. If you go to the archaeological museums in Spain, like in Madrid, you're going to find this. You see, it's the Goths came from Pomerania and from the north of Europe, and you can see the style is very, very different from the rest of the Moorish style that you're going to see soon. If you go to Spain, this is Visigoth kind of columns, and if you open your eyes a little bit, in many places of Spain, you can see within the buildings that the Moors built, you'll find sometimes some old columns that were built on their time by the Visigoths. Now, the Moorish dynasties. We say that in 711, Spain is conquered. And then we have this caliphate, and you have what we call the Golden Age. The Golden Age is between 929 and 1031. That's where you have tremendous progresses in technology, in cultures, in medicine. That's where the king, the caliph had a diplomat, like a diplomat, which was Hasei ben Shaprut, which was Jewish. There were Jewish and Christian generals, and it was like a symbiosis of all the components of the society. But later on, the kingdoms will be divided, and the Christians gain ground, and that you have, when the Christians captured Toledo, it's a big shock. Toledo used to be the old Christian capital. So the Moors in Spain called to the Moroccans to come and help. And you're going to have two invasions, the Almoravid, Al-Murabitun, the Almohad, Al-Muwahidun, and the third one, the Merinid. We'll come back to those. The Reconquista is going to be there. After the Conquista, in Spain, in Christian Spain, they're going to try to make a big cultural center, civilization center with mitigated success, I would say. And then you have Inquisition established, expulsion, we'll come back to that. And when the Kingdom of Granada is finished, then it's the same time, the discovery of America. And later on, Spain became a Republica for a short while, then a Republic under Franco. Today, it's again a kingdom for how long, I don't know. Let's start with Cordoba. Cordoba was the first capital of the Moors, of the Caliphate. So when you go to Cordoba, you can see still the old buildings that you have. You see those canals that exist here have been built in the time of the Moors. Irrigation was great, mining was great, commerce was great. Probably that in the old times, the city didn't change to what we look at it today. It's more or less the same. And let's see a few things. Just one library in Cordoba has 400,000 books. Can you imagine what it is at the time? Same thing in Sevilla, by the way. Poetry was great. If you read Ibn Hazm, it's spiritual poetry, but also erotic poetry. It's very, very interesting to read. Music, they brought a famous musician from the Near East, and they started the Andalusian music. And the Andalusian music has been kept by the Jews in North Africa and in Algeria for many years. Why the Jews? Maybe I'll question period that explain that. Then you had also a lot of translations. Translations of the Greek science, especially medicine and so on, have been started in Baghdad, but they have been continued and developed a lot in Spain. You have astronomia, a lot of progresses in astronomia, the development of the astrolabe, mathematics, probability theory, Ibn Ezra combinatorics, architecture, which is absolutely wonderful, and a huge interest in philosophy. Cordoba. So it has been this political center, capital of the Emirate. It became completely independent of Baghdad in 1929. It had 600 mosques and more than 300 hammams. And the palace had 4,000 marble columns. It's absolutely astounding. When you go to the Mezquita, which is the mosque in Cordoba, which has been kept, although I'll tell you what, when the Christians conquered Cordoba, they erased everything they could find, every writing in Arabic, even the hammams, the Christian hammams, because it was considered to be an Arab thing. They wanted to erase the souvenirs of the Arabs at the time, until the case in Granada. And what you have in Mezquita, you're going to have a mosque which is absolutely delightful. When you go there, it's a sea of columns, it's a sea of arcades that you go there, and it's simply a wonderful sight for the eye. Those are pictures I took at time. And then you see you can see on the right, you have an arabesque, which is typically Oriental. And on the left, you see suddenly within that, you see something different. Those ogives that you can see here are basically Christians, because when the Christians conquered Cordoba in 1236, they didn't want to destroy the mosque, so they kept the mosque and built inside the church. And that's something nice. It's interesting that, you know, when the Christians conquered the Alhambra or the Mezquita of Cordoba, they could not destroy those palaces, which are beautiful. Same thing when the Ottomans conquered Constantinople, they kept St. Sophie and built a mosque inside St. Sophie, but they did not destroy St. Sophie. Again, so you have this mixed architecture within the Mezquita. You have also a synagogue in Cordoba. This synagogue is one of the synagogues that existed at the time. As you can see, it says here in Hebrew, Mikdash Me'at, because Ezekiel said that a synagogue is a small temple. It's a mini temple. And you can see on top here the place for women directly. Some more pictures of the synagogue. And this style that you can see here, you're going to find in Moorish places, but also in North Africa, also you can find the same style. It's called a Moorish style. Then when you stroll through Cordoba, you're going to see a lot of Judaica. You have a statue of Harambam, of Maimonides here. You also have a statue of Averroès, another philosopher, and Ibn Hazm, which was a poet that I presented before. You have Plaza de Tiberias, Plaza de Yehuda Levi, and you have also a museum. And you can stroll through the Juderia, that means the Jewish quarter. And this is inside the museum. In the museum, they're trying to give a feel what Judaism is and what it was on the time of the Moors. And it's done with good taste, I would say. And even you see here, Hasdai ben Shaprut, the street, Hasdai ben Shaprut was this diplomat. He's in blue here in this painting, okay? He was a doctor, diplomat, and he corresponded with the Khazar kingdom in Crimea, whose king converted to Judaism, and we have kept this correspondence, was kept, and Yehuda Levi wrote a book called the Kuzari. So this is the Caliph Abd al-Rahman, which was basically under his rule, Cordoba flourished absolutely fantastically. A few words on philosophy. People at the time were wondering, what's the relation between reason and philosophy? How can you believe and at the same time think and being rational? The problem started to bother many intellectuals, Saadia Gaon in Egypt, for instance, and so on. But you're going to have something very interesting coming from the three religions. Averroes and Maimonides, which basically live more or less at the same time. Averroes, called Ibn Rushd in Arabic, says basically that if the scripture contradicts reason, you have to reinterpret the scriptures. That means if something doesn't seem to make sense, reinterpret until it makes sense. And this was a big revolution at the time, because the Maktub is not necessarily what it says. You have to go beyond the Maktub. And Maimonides said the whole idea of intellect is simply to acquire moral values. You have to read everything so in order to improve your moral values as an individual. And later on, Thomas d'Aquinas in Paris, Thomas d'Aquinas says if we resolve all the problems of faith by simply authority, then we'll have a head full of truth, but empty. So those three revolutions have been great. They have been opposition over time. Averroes was, they burned his books, Maimonides too, and Thomas d'Aquinas was beatified only a few centuries later. But they have become a parangon of what is today the relation should be between science and reason. Let's take a picture of Cordoba. Maimonides, as you know, I cannot cover all the persons of Cordoba, but I would say a few things. He's known for Mishneh Torah. That means before him there was Rabbi Yitzhak al-Fassi called the Rif, because before the Rif, the Talmud consisted of thousands and thousands of little papers, and you needed a head, an encyclopedic head to find yourself. What the Rif did, he organized it by topics. That's what you have the Gemara of today. It's organized with the Rif. But Maimonides wrote a Reader's Digest of that. He also wrote a Guide of the Perplexed. That means if you don't know what to believe or not, he's going to guide you and with logic to get you to believe in the scriptures and improvement and so on. He wrote a lot of medicine, which is absolutely amazing when you see the actuality of its medicine. And you have letters. He corresponded all over the communities. Where communities were in danger, he told them they force you to convert or be burnt on the stake. He says convert and then flee, go somewhere else and go back to your Judaism. He said you have to save your life first. And today, if you go to Jerusalem near the Knesset, you have this big menorah that represents the history of Jewish people offered by England. And Spain is represented by two persons. Here you have Maimonides, and here Yehuda Levi is the poet. So Maimonides, just like Yehuda Levi, just like Nachmanides and many others, ended up in the Holy Land. This is here Cordoba. He went to Fez for 5 years, okay? And then the persecution started in Fez. Then he went to Akko in Israel. Then he went to visit Jerusalem, but it was only ruins all over. He went to Hebron, and then he went to Egypt, and then he became the doctor to the son of Salah ad-Din, who defeated the Crusaders in the Holy Land. And today he's buried in Tiberias. They have built this kind of mausoleum in Tiberias, although he said it's not good to build mausoleums on. So they had done it for him. Another person, I see Abu Qasim, you know the name of the Cassis. It's a family of doctors who basically have introduced anesthesia, plaster, fractures, chirurgy, pharmacology, cauterization, and so on. You also have astronomers. If you go to the moons, you have a few craters which have the name of Sephardic scientists, like Abraham Zakut. You have also another crater, Levin Gershon, Ibn Ezra. As I said to you before, there's also Ben Soussan, which was an astronomer who wrote the book Ibor Shanim. He doesn't have his crater, but apparently, according to my wife, I live on the moon, so it's fine. Next, the Caliphate now is divided in 27 parts, and it's a new ball game now. And the Moors called the Al-Murabitun and Muwahidin. Al-Murabitun were Tuaregs, basically they live on camels. They came by thousands and asked the Jews to help them reconquer Spain because Toledo was taken in Spain. And it was, they thought that in the Moors of Spain have it too easy, too much easy life and so on. They're not enough ascetic. But when the Al-Murabitun came to Spain, they also enjoyed life and became also starting to enjoy the Dolce Vita. And then you have also the Al-Muwahidun. Muwahidun, it says Wahid in Arabic means one, but means one book, one religion, and that's it. Anything else doesn't exist. You had to convert or die. And in fact, hundreds of thousands are going to be killed in North Africa, to the point where a few writers says the Jewish flame is simply off in North Africa. They went to Spain. There were also some problems. There were big elegies and all of that. And that's it. Cordoba is finished. I'll take you a second to Lucena. Not too bad, because Lucena was a big rabbinic center. And today, if you go to Lucena, you see those are the streets, okay, in Hebrew and Spanish. And then you had the Reconquista. I'm just saying you have here Toledo, Lisbon, big defeat of the Almohadin at La Navas de Tolosa. Then Castilla and Leon unite. Cordoba is taken. Valencia and Murcia are taken. Sevilla are taken, sorry. The Balear Islands are taken by Aragon. Aragon and Castile unite, and you see the Christians are united their kingdom slowly. And then you have the fall of Granada in 1492. That's it for Granada. Since we have 4 parts, maybe I'll stop. I just realized I gave you the French version and not the English version, so I'll switch right away. But if there's any questions on this first part on Cordoba, with pleasure, I'll take it. If no question, if Albert, if you want to look at the chat, if there's any question, with pleasure. Give me 1 second. I'll switch to the English one.
No, I don't see any questions at the moment.
Okay,
David.
perfect. So I'll continue. Won't be long.
C'est bon,
Okay.
David, on peut continuer.
On peut continuer, c'est bon. So let me simply go back to the end of Cordoba. No, that's not one. Okay. Sorry, I'll have to skip a few slides. I'm better to, because this is in English now. Oh no, it's not. Almost there. So second part.
David, just allow me to say, your presentations are always so unique and rich, and we can't get this stuff anywhere else. God bless you.
Okay, thank you. I have a problem with the finding the English, I think. Give me 1 second.
If you don't find it, we are okay with French.
No, I have it. Problem, I have too many presentations.
Okay. No problem.
Okay, that's the English one. You'll see it right away. Okay, Let me just go back to where we should be. That means after Cordoba, and let's start Sevilla. Toledo, sorry. Voila. Second party, Toledo. This is Toledo. And you can see it has kept a lot of it's not modern construction. And especially this part here where you have the church and you have the Juderia has been kept as is. And you can go to Toledo and go stroll through the streets and you see Barrio de la Juderia. And you can go there and feel just like you were at the time you lived at the time of Spain. And you see this style that is style specific to Toledo is still, your jewelers in Toledo are still doing this kind of style. You can buy a lot of items, plate, decorations with these Jewish symbols. But again, Toledo was conquered in 1087. And then you have the big church. Toledo is conquered. And now Toledo is under Christian rule. And then you have Alfonso X, called Alfonso the Wise. Alfonso the Wise wanted to recreate Cordoba in Toledo. So what he did, he simply invited translators, most of them Jewish, to translate to Latin, to Castilian writings in philosophy and medicine. He wanted to recreate Cordoba. But in fact, he has done mostly translations, but not, I would say, the creativity was not there. It was its ambition, but nevertheless. So when you go to Toledo, you can see here the synagogue Ben Susan, which is Moorish style, as you can see. It's here. It's still beautiful, although it's almost 800 years old. And you also have the synagogue called El Transito. In fact, the name of the synagogue is Synagogue Shamuel Levi Abulafia. That was the name of the synagogue at the time. And you can see a cross on top. And if you go inside, it's simply marvelous. What you can see here is simply verses of the Psalms. And when you look at it, it's basically la Natseach it just when you do mincha, it's how it is nice to be in your temple and so on. And if you can see here, the ceiling is done with cedar. And you see those two windows here, just like the Ten Commandments. So they wanted to recreate an impression of a temple inside this synagogue.
Beautiful.
That's still beautiful. So people who know their prayers by heart can immediately find their verses here. You have also in Segovia, you have you had a rich person called Abraham Senior, which was in Segovia, but the synagogue he built, it has been transformed into a church also. A few other things. You have here travels. We had a Jewish Marco Polo called Benjamin Metudela, and Marco Polo is has traveled around the world and used to go and look for Jewish communities and describe what he sees all over. And he was looking for the lost tribes of Israel, which was a dream of every Jew for the centuries. And his books are illuminating. He also wrote on other parts which he did not visit, but which he heard of. And his book is absolutely phenomenal. Let's continue now again. The we have seen that. Let's go to Sevilla. Sevilla is beautiful and sad. Why am I saying beautiful and sad? You're going to see beautiful Sevilla, but at the same time, you're going to see that Sevilla, that's where the Christian animosity towards Jews started many, many times. The Giralda, which is this tower, this mosque transformed into a church in Sevilla. So Sevilla was a Roman city conquered in 712 by Castilla in 1248. And it's also known for its universal exhibition in 1992. But if you look at this mosque, you'll find similar mosques. This one is the Kutubia of Marrakesh, if somebody has seen it, here in Rabat, and this is in Sevilla, because they all have been built in the time of the Andalusian, of the Almohades. And then naturally, the mosque was not destroyed, transformed into church, and you have a huge church nearby, which is also very, very beautiful to see. It's called La Giralda. You have also the Alcazar, which is a small palace nearby, and you see the same kind of richness that you have in Granada. Again, Moorish, you have the azulejos, the mosaics that you have here, the arabesques. All this has been kept. It's wonderful for the eye just to be there and look how, how elevating this art can be. And I told you also Sevilla is a sad city. Why? In 1391, there was a huge pogrom. They killed around 6,000 Jews, and then they continued in Spain because some Jews were forced to convert, but some Jews faked it. And one day they call, the governor or the king, and they tell him, look, all those houses, there's no smoke coming out of those houses, those are Jews. They live in a Christian quarter, but they're Jews because they don't cook on Shabbos. And they started to kill on the right and left. And it scattered all over. And in fact, one of the first exodus of the Jews from Spain was in 1391. Most of them left for Morocco. That's where also you had the first Inquisition. Okay, what is the Inquisition? Inquisition was the Christians could not live with the idea that Jews are alive, because don't forget, to them, they are Verus Israel, that means the true Israel. The Old Testament is dead. There's only the New Testament. But if the Jews are here and thriving, it's an insult to them because they're not the real legitimate children, which means they make from them illegitimate children, and they could live with the idea. At the same time, you have to consider the fact that there was always competition between the Pope and the kings. Canossa, Henry IV from German Holy Empire. There was always competition, and the Pope tried to force the king to do what they wanted through the church. Inquisition one of the means. So what is Inquisition? Anybody can say, oh, this one, I've seen him make a prayer, I've seen him, buying something, kosher food or something like that. Then he's called to a judge. And it was mostly geared toward new Christians, new converts. But you cannot know who has accused you. And you have a choice. Either if you confess, you are hanged and then burnt. And if you don't confess, you are burnt alive. And in fact, the first auto da fe will happen in Sevilla in 1481. Another problem was started in France in 1242, Place de la Grève, where basically they said that the Talmud insults Christ, and they started to burn Talmuds by thousands of manuscripts of Talmud, they burned them in. So the fashion was there. They do the same. But they wanted to do it smartly. So they had controversies. That means you had the rabbi on one hand, and you had the priest, and there will be a competition. And this is a king, which is supposed to be the judge, and each one defends a religion. And the rabbi, which is Nachmanid, which is Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, not to be confused with Harambam, it is Haramban, defended the Jewish faith in a way that simply amazed the king, who gave him a huge gift at the end because he couldn't believe the argumentations. Example, the Dominican there, which happened to be a conversos, okay, start to say in the Talmud it says such and such. He says, so what? He says, I'm looking at the Bible. He says, so the Talmud is wrong. He says, well, Talmud has been done on rabbis. Any sermon of one of your priests here is a truth of God. You have to take rabbis into perspective. Put things in, you have to be, there's relativeness in what you're taking, you're choosing. And he went through every argument systematically. But later on, since before he started, he says, well, I would like to speak freely. And he was promised that. But when he wrote his memoirs of what happened, they start to accuse him. He says, well, you had the permission to speak freely, but not to write freely. And therefore he had to flee, and he went to Israel. This is the 1391 pogrom. And then you start this Anusim. You see here, it's something looks like a Seder Pesach, and you have two persons looking at the windows to see if somebody is going to look at them or not. There's another controversy which lasted 20 months. 20 months where the Christians try to show that their religion is better. And obviously, if it lasted 20 months, that means they didn't have the arguments they wanted. And it simply concluded very sadly, as you can imagine, because after that, there was the Inquisition. And the Inquisition was not enough. If you converted and you were a new Christian, nuevo cristiano, you were new Christians, even if you did not Judaize, you were suspicious. Why? Because you don't have real blood. And there is a purity of the blood in 1449. And you had this concept that you have to limit the number of new Christians in government, the number of the Christians in here and there, even if they become real, believers in Christianity and so on. So there was no rest for the Jews in Spain, especially for the conversos. If there are no questions, I could continue to Granada. Granada is a jewel in Spain. It's known for the Alhambra, which is a palace, fantastic palace. And you can see here those lions and fountain, which they say belong to Shamuel ibn Agrela from his house, who was a Jewish general of the army and vizier of the kingdom of Granada in better times. Let's take a stroll through Granada. This is the city of today. And this is the Alhambra. Not was the Alhambra, that means the red, because everything is red around. It's a beautiful, beautiful palace. And if you go there, you find camels, flowers. You can have a feel of the beauty of life, the dolce vita that existed at the time. Imagine music, imagine birds, imagine the flowers, imagine the singers, and it was all there. Look at the roof, how it's sculpted, and colored, and the colors have, you can see by some of the colors, it's simply multi-level sculpture, beautiful. And you have this mosaics as well. In fact, with this motif, I remember in my house in Morocco, we had something like that climbing up the stairs. Maybe some of you can relate to that. And again, you see the gardens. And you have here, you enter the palace. You go to the room of the ambassador. You cannot beat my wife, she's among us today. And you have the architecture, Andalusian architecture to its beauty. And you see here on top, all over 50,000 times, it says Allahu Akbar all over. This is the chamber of the ambassadors used to come, wait here before they introduced to the King of Granada. And the view is absolutely beautiful. You see the sculptures. Some of you who read Arabic, you can see here, say La ilaha illallah, and so on. And it goes all over. The roofs. Again, some views. You know, what's interesting is that it doesn't matter what time of the day you take a picture, it's always a success, always beautiful. So you have to imagine now here how it was here. It was with singers, choirs, instruments. You have thinkers, lecturers all over. And the kingdom was very, very rich, but it ended up in 1492. In 1492, Granada fell. Why did it fall? Again, Granada was still very strong and could have been stayed until today. 3 people contested the place of the king. You have the father, the son, and the uncle. And the 3 wanted. So the uncle basically converted to Christianity and helped the Christians so that he would have his say in Granada. And the 2, the father and the son, started to fight each other. And this is a story of Spain. I mean, the Arabs among themselves cannot unite beautifully during this period. It seems like it is the same today. And when the king of Granada had to give back the keys of the city to the King Ferdinand, you see here on the right in red, Ferdinand of Aragon, who married Isabel de Castile. His mother of the king said, cry like a woman what you didn't know how to defend as a man. It's a famous saying. Even if you go to Spain today, you see le soupir du mort, le soupir d'amour. And then you have 1492, it's conquered. And then comes the edict of expulsion, convert or be expelled. You had no choice. And you started to travel. A few things. Ferdinand d'Aragon didn't want the Inquisition altogether. He knew that behind it, it was, you know, he would be manipulated by the Pope and so on. He said, why should I fire the Jews? They pay 35% of my taxes. They're the best faithful citizens. I don't, you know, I like them and they're very useful for the kingdom. But his wife was somehow manipulated by Torquemada, which is a chief inquisitor, and his wife won the case. It was Isabel de Castilla. Basically the edict was there. And the Jews had no choice but to leave. And those who stayed knew one thing, they have to convert, and still the risk of being no converters. That means being not pure blood and be suspicious of hiding the Judaism. And starts the Exodus. So imagine, you don't have to imagine that they took the boat or took a plane to go somewhere, because the whole Mediterranean was full of pirates. And even if you landed somewhere, nobody received you with arms. You know, many people were abused when they landed. So Jews went, basically, three kings opened their doors to invite the Jews: King of Morocco, King of Fez at the time, King of Naples, and the King of Constantinople, Istanbul. Istanbul is, since there's no P in Turkish, there's only B, so Istanbul is the deformation Istanbulis. You know, it's a deformation of Constantinople. So that's where they were accepted, and elsewhere they went to also to Egypt, to the Holy Land, to Turkey, and in Turkey they were received with open arms, because right away, like for people who came from Spain, like when they came to Fez 5 years later, there was a printing in Spain, in Fez, in Morocco, which was never shown before. Right away, when they went to Constantinople, the industries, the metallurgy, the commerce started to flourish. So the Sultan of Constantinople was extremely happy. They went to Greece, and there's a huge Jewish community in Salonika. So you have Jews going all over Venezia, Italy. They didn't stay long in Naples, because Naples would be later part of Aragon. So Jews had to flee from Naples. But at the origin, there were strong Jews in Naples. Later on comes the Portuguese. You know, close to 200,000 Jews, they said, again, went to Portugal, because in Portugal at the time there was no Inquisition. That was in 1492. But the king of Portugal saw that Spain was not very strong. He was afraid for his own skin. So he suggested a wedding between his princess and the king of Spain. So not to end up under Spanish rule. And it was the case. But they say, we didn't find any document. They said one of the conditions is that he imposes Inquisition. So you have Jews in Spain, in Portugal, I mean, and Inquisition, and then they were trapped. And the Inquisition in Portugal was much harsher than the Inquisition in Spain, much harsher. Before the Inquisition, the monks started to build huge convents, and they had no money at all. But you should know that Inquisition, both in Spain and Portugal, the second the Jew was accused, all his belongings went to the church. So there was also some economic moment there. And in fact, you are in a Spanish-Portuguese synagogue, because, you know, the Jews from Spain went to Portugal, so there were Spanish-Portuguese Jews, and they keep speaking Portuguese. In fact, in your own synagogues, the sermons were given with Rabbi Saturday in Portuguese until 1868, then they switched to English. And later on, Jews start to escape towards Holland, and later on to England. Why Holland? Holland was fighting Spain, because Spain, through marriage, inherited parts of Germany and Holland. So the Holland were not, how to say, friends of the Spanish. Neither were the British. There's nice stories for Jewish pirates attacking boats also that ended up in Holland, called the Palachi. There's a lot of histories, interesting histories. But one person who's absolutely made a huge difference was Dona Gracia Mendoza. She was the richest person on earth because she had the commerce of spices. A gram of spices could be sold much higher than the price of gold. I mean, at the time, Europe was crazy about spices. And she helped Jews to escape clandestinely towards Holland and towards there. Later on, she'll go to Venezia, then she'll go to Constantinople, and then she'll open colonies in Israel and in Tiberias for Jews to settle there. And I believe that concludes my history presentation, but I'm ready now to answer all your questions, whichever. We can open the mics. Yeah, I know. Okay, I'm cutting the sharing.
I would like to say something.
Sure.
It's an amazing presentation what you gave us today. Unbelievable. In fact, you did the dream of Rabbi Joseph, Zechrono Lebracha. He planned to take us, a group from the Spanish and Portuguese. In fact, he wanted to take from the women learning group and to visit this exactly the places that you just showed us. And we could never imagine that they are so beautiful.
Yeah.
So
In
he
fact,
couldn't do the program. It didn't work for certain reasons. And now you took us to all those places. They are so beautiful. They are amazing. I just
absolutely.
want to ask you, you went there and you took all those pictures?
Most of them, not all of them, most of them.
And they are still so beautiful and so lively.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And the colors are so bright and so lovely. It's
Yeah.
something amazing. I really thank you. You did such a great job for us that we could see all those things that we were dreaming, and everybody wanted to take us there, and it never worked.
In fact,
Gladys,
In
I think
fact-
Lisette has a question.
second, maybe to continue on that, we have a leadership program at CSUQ, and I took a bus full of young people, young leaders, future leaders, took them to Spain and Morocco, and we were through the Jewish sites, and I was inviting them at each place. You know, in Malaga, you read poetry from Ibn Gebirol, in Granada from Shmuel, Nagid, and so on. And it was amazing because people could connect better by reading the author, the place they were in different cities. It was a good experience. And this leadership program continues still today.
Amazing. I would like to ask David Nathaniel, our vice president. He was in a meeting and he wanted to make sure that to join you and learn from you. Would you like to say anything, David Nathaniel?
Hi, Gladys.
Hello.
Hello,
You have
David.
to
Hello.
add something.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Very good.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So thank you. I joined a little bit late and unfortunately I was in the car. So I'm going to look forward to seeing the recording. But at least in my mind, as you were describing and reviewing some of the photos, you know, I was sort of, you know, imagining what it could be. So it will be interesting when I'll see the recording to see, and in fact, what you were showing. But it's really interesting. And I think this leadership program that you have is also something we should try to promote, you know, within the Spanish and Portuguese congregation, because I think both, I don't know what is the ages of the leadership program, but I think that, you know, I think there'd be a lot of interest of all ages to perhaps do a trip.
As it is now, it's young professionals, and the young professionals, there's a trip going this summer to Spain also. Yeah.
Wow. It's something, yeah.
Again, the
maybe.
recording is private, it's not a public recording because some of the pictures are not mine, not many, but I have to ask permission. I didn't have the time to do it.
We will do it by email.
I think
Yes,
Lisette
Andre?
has a question, Gladys.
Andre, you want to say something? Thank you,
But
David.
Lisette before me, and then I'll do.
Thank you, David Nathaniel. Thank you for joining.
Lisette, unmute yourself.
Yeah.
My
Hi,
pleasure.
thank you. Thanks. I was lucky enough to have been to Cordoba twice once more than 30 years ago and once about maybe 5 years ago. I noticed many more Arabs coming to Cordoba with hijabs, buses of them, and looking at us like they own the place. There is a lot of Muslim kind of, Islamic centers right around Cordoba. But I have two questions. One is, did the Jews help build Cordoba? Something I've heard, is it true?
Okay. When Cordoba was built, Jews were part of the invasion of the Arabs, and I believe they were part of the building the New Spain. When the Almoravidun came, in fact, they left Jews to guard, certain places, strategic places. Also, you should know that when the Almoravidun came, they asked the Jews to help them. So one of the kings, Alphonse VI, so according to the Arab writers, they say 40,000 Jewish horsemen plus others. Arabs tend to exaggerate, but when we saw the armies that were coming, landing on the shore, the Spanish king said, okay, let's have a ceasefire Friday for the Muslims, Saturday for the Jews, and Sunday for the Christians. That's totally important. Now, let's go back to your question about, you should know that in 1492, Jews were expelled. And 10 years later, against their own promises and so on, it was the turn of the Muslims to be expelled. And many Muslims converted at the time because they had no choice. And a lot of the Muslims came back to North Africa, Tetuan, mostly, and the region. And today, in modern times, some of the people from Andalusia think they have some Arabic origin, and they call their children Yasmin, names like that, and so on. But you should know also that Saudi Arabia has built thousands and thousands and thousands of churches around the world. You cannot build a mosque, sorry. You cannot build a church in Saudi Arabia, but they're building all over. And if you go anywhere, you find their signature in every space because the money is there and so on. And you have a lot of tourists coming in. So Spanish people are very happy of Jewish tourism, and you can see how Cordoba before, to visit, you see now a lot of Jewish names, spaces, name of streets, and so on, and something similar for the Muslims. So there is this kind of awakening, but it's not very serious. At the same time, in Baleares, you have about 20,000 Jews, which are children of Marranos, and many of them go to Israel, convert and go to Israel. So you have this thing. Genetics have shown that, in fact, 20% of the Spanish people have Jewish blood, Jewish origin, and 40% of the Portuguese have Jewish origin genetics. Again, most of the Jews left for Portugal thinking it was safe before it became a nightmare. And today in Portugal, you have many villages where they have customs. They don't understand, but they do them because, the grandmother did and so on, Jewish customs on the right and left. In Pesach, they jump around the river and things like that, small little things to do. And many of them know they're Jewish, and they're very open to admit it. While during many years, they were hiding it, possible. Today, they don't hide it anymore.
But did they actually help build Cordoba? Was it their money?
I cannot tell you that. I cannot tell you for sure. I went through a lot. I studied architecture at the time. I didn't see anything about the builders per se. So I would say when we say the Moorish civilization, in fact, it's Judeo-Christian Muslim civilization. So I believe at the time, especially in the time of Cordoba, we had the golden age, everything was integrated.
Again, now in Sevilla, I remember we did see a church that had a Star of David. And actually, I found the guides. The guides in Spain are still, they have this anti-Jewish in them. You know, they always stick up a word here and there. But that Star of David in the church, the guide was saying, you know, the Jews, they were giving the money, and so they wanted the Star of David to say it's them. I mean, with so much resentment. And another Jewish guide was saying that, you know, the Jews in the Inquisition, I mean, she felt it was okay to be kind of punished because they said they converted, but they really didn't convert. So it was okay to
They were
punish them.
punished, yeah.
Yeah, it was okay. Like, you know, these are the guides today.
I
And
know.
at the same token,
Same thing in the Colosseum in Rome and so on. I heard all kinds of stories. Now, let me tell you something about the Star of David. The Star of David is not necessarily a Jewish signature. The Moroccan flag was a Star of David for centuries. And you have pictures and so on. It's only when General Lyoté came to Morocco, he decided to change the Star of David to a star with 5 corners, because he didn't want to avoid confusion. And we know, people know Lyoté, he was like anti-Dreyfus at the time. So he always had some weird attitude towards the Jews. Anyway, to tell you how serious it was, at the first Jewish Congress, there were Jewish Moroccan representatives in Bâle. And when they said which flag we're going to have, they said we're going to have the Star of David. And the Moroccan delegation says, no, it's not Jewish enough. Okay, let's put the Lion of Judah or something, because this is not specifically Jewish, because in North Africa it was not. So it's very possible that when you saw the Star of David there, it might be of the time of the Moors, because it was not specifically Jewish at the time. Yes?
Can I say something?
Sure.
You spoke about Marco Polo going and looking for synagogues. Was he Jewish?
No, it's Benjamin de Tudela, who was a Jewish Marco Polo.
He was a Jewish Marco Polo. Okay, okay. I thought you said Marco Polo.
Yeah,
okay.
You have Jewish travelers, which are fascinating. You can read them today and be amazed. Benjamin Tudela, Dan Hadani, and you have their books which are available and illuminating.
So Tudela and Marco Polo were around the same time together?
More or less. No, I think Marco Polo was slightly before.
Before. Thank you.
Slightly before. But Marco Polo went to China, but you've seen the peripheral of Benjamin Tudela. It was different.
Okay, thank you.
I believe there's a question in the chat from Tammy Halpern. And the question is, were the synagogues also converted to churches? And
Yes.
if so, then why were the Hebrew inscriptions not destroyed?
Again, why the Arab inscriptions in Granada, not there 50,000 la ilaha, you know, they didn't destroy it because it was beautiful no matter what. So it was for them the proof that they conquered the place, maybe, and it was not destroyed. I mean, they tried to erase, but somehow they respected beauty up to a certain point. They could not destroy it directly. About the El Transito, but you saw this beautiful synagogue in Toledo. And you have a museum there, which basically was a house of the founder of the synagogue, you would have been Abulafia, Levi Abulafia. A few years ago, you know the Tower of David in Jerusalem? You have a tomb of King David, which is presumed to be the King David, and on top you have the place where the last meal of Jesus, le repas de la Seine, okay? Which is considered to be very holy to the Christians. So there was a proposition from the Vatican. They tried to say, okay, we'll give you the transito to become a synagogue, and you'll give us the tomb of King David. But it didn't go anywhere, obviously.
I have an anecdote to say.
Oui.
C'est possible. Okay. 40 years ago, I was in Lisbon, okay, Portugal.
Un peu plus fort, un peu plus fort.
40 years ago, I was in Lisbon, in Portugal.
Yeah.
I was in a trade show, fabric trade show, okay, and the organizer invited us, okay, to whoever want to go. We went to a restaurant, typical Portuguese restaurant, okay, and there were singers inside. We're making money by singing and selling the cassette at that time, okay. And one lady was a beautiful singer, and I noticed she had a big Star of David hanging on her neck, okay. So when she came to our table, I asked her, "What is this what you are wearing on your neck?" And she told me, "This is a lucky star that brings us luck." Okay, yeah. So the Star of David, they transform from Jewish or Muslim, whatever you want to say, okay, to a lucky star. That's the way the whatever.
In 2002, we had the Sephardic festival, the theme of which was the Lost Tribes of Israel, and had written a special newspaper to that. And somehow things traveled, and I started to receive from Algeria, from the Kabyles, which are Berbers.
Yeah.
We think we are Jewish because, we have a proverb. It says, if you work on Shabbos, you become blind. Or Saturday night, they put candles and they cover them and they don't know why they do that. Same thing in Afghanistan and so on. So there's a lot of crypto Jews or former Jews amongst the Berbers in North Africa. I remember there was a Jewish queen at the time, and many other places. So this is not the end. Today, genetics is illuminating. It's showing more and more and more things.
Well, the Kabyles, okay, I think they know the origin is Jewish, because I have some customers who are Kabyle names, Jewish names. Okay?
Not only, I agree, but not only that. Since the Kabyles are opposed to Algerian governments, and since the Kabyles have relations with Israel, so the Algerian government calls them the Jews.
That's it.
So or not, they being the designer Jews by themselves and by the people elsewhere. Oui, Gigi?
Okay.
Je voulais dire un mot.
Pardon?
I wanted to add something
to
congratulate you for an excellent presentation and bringing the Kutubias inside from Marrakesh. I could see that resemblance, which I didn't see before with the mosque in Spain there. And it's been a very thorough presentation. And it's like I was there with the beautiful pictures that you've taken. I think it took us there. And as Gladys has said, it's like being there. It's the people from the Spanish and Portuguese wanted to go for a trip there. And I think your presentation has really made up for that and covered it very, very well.
Merci.
And félicitations pour cette présentation.
Hello?
Merci beaucoup. Je pense qu'il y a une deuxième Gigi qui voulait.
Okay, I wanted to actually make just two comments. One is that in the last several years, I have come across so many articles about people in New Mexico, in South America, in Italy, in Portugal, and Spain, in the former Yugoslavia, parts of the former Yugoslavia, who are aware that they, who became aware that they have Jewish roots and returned to Judaism. So there is some sort of movement. Ironically, their biggest enemy, the most difficult impediment they have, is their own family members, many of whom are opposed to the idea of conversion, are afraid of it. They still have the death threat. If you say it publicly that we are Jewish, if you declare it publicly, it's a threat to us, it's dangerous. I remember reading about a woman, she was actually a beautiful woman who was a judge, I believe it was in New Mexico, who was threatened by her family with death. That's how ingrained the fear was of revealing their Jewishness. And this was just, I don't know, a decade ago, something like this. The other thing that I wanted to say is I came across a man, I almost said a gentleman, but he wasn't, a fellow very, very tall. This was in Kinshasa, and he had a big open shirt with a huge, huge cross showing, and his name was something like Shabtai. And he to me could have been Jewish or Muslim or he's Spanish, you know, he had that look, very Mediterranean, but his name, it was something like Shabtai. It was so Jewish, but he wanted to counteract that identity by showing, no, I am a, you know, devout Catholic. And I wanted to stop him and to talk to him, but yeah, I couldn't do it. In any case, so the fear remains, that's it, but for many, and now with anti-Jewish sentiment developing throughout the world, re-evolving under other guises, there are a lot of people who would rather not show that they are Jewish, unfortunately. But there was a small window between, I don't know, maybe the 80s, something like this, and just recently, in which time some people found out or understood their Jewish roots, and some of them even reconverted. A few have made Aliyah. So it's just interesting that history still has a great influence on individuals and their identity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you,
I
Gigi.
would say, just to complement what you say, today, if you go to Mexico, South America, you have hundreds of thousands who think they have Jewish origin, which happens to be true. But when Spain said we let the Sephardim go back to Spain and get the Spanish nationality, then you had millions wanting to be Jewish.
Yes.
And coming back, so they stopped. Spain started. Portugal still does it. That's one thing. This Marrano history is, it's obvious. You have a few people coming back to it in Spain, in Portugal, and especially Amazonia, because the Jews from north of Morocco developed the culture of the caoutchouc, rubber.
Right.
In the late 19th century.
So Brazil.
Exactly. So, and they made children along the way, and those children, you listen to their music, it's just a mixture of Moroccan Khazanout with Amazonian style. Beautiful. Anyway, so this is part of the reality we're living today. I wouldn't say it's uniform. Some people accept it. Some people have difficulty with it. From all the religions, the Catholics are the most, have more difficulty accepting Jews. Protestants, which have a personal reading of the Bible and not an established one coming from the top, an institutional one, are more open to it.
Right. Thank you. I also enjoyed your presentation.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I love history, and especially Jewish history and the influences on it and the difficulties that Jews encountered. Yeah.
I have another anecdote, if that's possible.
Go on.
Can talk?
Oui.
Okay. I know that in Morocco, we had people who came after they were converted. Okay. And I don't think they had any problem getting back into the Jewish circles. Okay. You have in Morocco people named Mémaran. Okay. Mémaran, I believe, comes from Mi Maran, which is Maranus. Okay, and you have the Rabba Saba, his brother-in-law is called Mémaran, okay, which is an uncle for me. Okay, so I understand that they accepted with no problems. How come now in Israel we have this problem of accepting the Jews that came from Russia and from anywhere, and they give them so hard, so much hardness?
Okay, two
Why
things
we have
about Morocco. When Jews came back to Morocco, they could come back to Judaism, but nevertheless, you have to remember that Tangier, Arcila, Larache, and so on, even Casablanca and so on, were Portuguese colonies. And sometimes the Portuguese would send boats to kidnap Jewish kids to convert them and bring them back to Portugal. So it was not necessarily always idyllic. This situation, we're not completely free until Portugal lost all its colonies, all those cities. Jews were not safe 100%. Same thing from Spain, but to a lesser extent. Again, the Inquisition in Portugal was much harsher. About converters, today you have at the border of India and Burma, you have close to 4 to 6 million people claiming to be from the Menashe tribe, and they want to come to Israel. The big problem is the rabbis in Israel making their life difficult. There is 15,000 in Israel today in the army, integrated and everything, but the rabbis makes it so difficult. Even in Montreal, people want to convert it. So, I mean, it's a nightmare. I know personal stories. People came crying to me that they were asked for years, and nothing was enough. So I believe there's something also. The reforms have no Reform Judaism have no problem integrating converts and so on. And I've been in many places in the States where the presidents and the best defenders of Israel and so on were converted Jews, and with no complex, no nothing. So the Orthodox Judaism has make it extremely difficult for its own reasons, but it's a tough one. And that's why in Israel it's a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, I just had a question, if I can. I know it's
Yes,
a long time. Yes, please. It was a very interesting talk, really lovely. Me and my wife also visited some of these cities and saw some of the places that you showed us. It was really wonderful. The thing that always intrigued me is that 1492 is the Spanish Inquisition. 1492 is also the discovery of the New World with the voyage of Columbus. And I think Queen Isabella did have some Jews as her advisors and for a while before the Inquisition. Do you see any connection between that voyage and the Inquisition? In other words, were there important Jews on that ship? Was Columbus Jewish? This is something we always wonder about. Do you have any ideas about that?
Today's research, many books have been written, and it looks like practically sure that Christoph Columbus is Jewish, was a Jewish origin, because of he used to write Bet He Bezrat Hashem in his letters, and a few signs, a few things he had, and he took with him some converts and so on, speaking Hebrew, thinking that maybe he might meet the lost tribes of Israel. And so, in fact, I met a girl living in Montreal. She says she's a descendant of Columbus. Okay. And I told her, I asked her the question. She says, yes, we think we are Jewish. She was at the Federation once, and I met her by accident. I had lunch with her. It was fascinating to see her story too. So most probably, Christopher Columbus was, he went to Genoa first to ask for a boat. He did not. To Spain, no. Everything seems to lead. I mean, it's a whole lecture because many things have been written on it, but definitely I believe he must be a former Jew, and behind this mind probably was thinking of having a safe place for Jews somewhere in the New World.
Can
But
I
again,
comment on what Dr. Shaheen just asked? There's also a story whereby Christopher Columbus was supposed to sail on a particular day, and then he had to postpone his voyage by a couple of days, and he went to ask the Queen permission to postpone the voyage for a couple of days. And apparently the reason for that was that the day he was supposed to sail, it was Yom Kippur. And he didn't want to sail on Yom Kippur, so he postponed his voyage by a couple of days to go after Yom Kippur. That's a story that I heard. And also,
but if you gather so many stories like that, you'll find, and documented stories. I'm saying for sure he was he was a crypto Jew, definitely.
Interesting. I would like to add something to Dr. Shaheen. There is something maybe you don't know.
Which is
the
what?
one behind all our program is your wife, Yael.
Oh.
Yael, at the time, 2008, suggested to Rabbi Ornstein to do ladies' bat mitzvah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, she was here during the whole talk. She just left for a minute. Talking about you, that you started the
2009. Hello, Yael.
Hi, how are you?
And from the program of Ladies Bat Mitzvah, the Women Learning Group was born.
Oh, that's nice.
Great. I'm just going to add another little anecdotal story about Lucina that you mentioned. We went to visit Lucina, and when we went to the city hall, it wasn't the mayor, it was the helper of the mayor. He went and took us on a 2-hour tour of the city. He was very proud to show us how Jewish it was. For us, it was very sad to see how great it was before, but how over time they really tried to erase any kind of remnants of Jewish heritage. But this city in particular was proud of revive some of those Jewish symbols. They show us even the cemetery, which they actually made a highway there. They moved some of the grave and they made like a sort of kind of a cemetery, and they show it to us. And he after called the mayor. For him, it was such a big thing that there was a Jewish couple from Montreal coming and interested in seeing this, their little town, because it's never on we didn't find it on a Jewish book or any book that you want to go and visit Spain. It's not a town that were mentioned at all. But somebody who is Jewish told us about it, who have some kind of it wasn't even a museum.
It was actually a secret museum. A secret museum.
Have an input everywhere, wherever you
go.
No,
it was nice. And even we wanted to, it was I think Shavuot at the time, and we wanted to go to the synagogue, and they said, you don't find any synagogue. You have to call somebody who calls somebody, and they have to on the phone to tell you where they are going to pray in somebody's house. Even in today's day and age, they are really hiding it, which was sad to see.
Nice in Lucena, they have restored the cemetery very nicely. But what's specific about Lucena is that it was a rabbinical center. Ibn Migash, Ibn Ezra, all the big writers went through this academy in Lucena, and therefore it was like a Torah center, I would say. Although in other places you had a huge Jewish culture and poetry and science and everything, Lucena was specifically rabbinical center, and beautiful books of commentaries have been come from there.
One question: what is the reason why Spain is reviving its Jewish heritage?
Tourism, for one thing. tourists and they see the number
They
of
feel sorry, maybe they
Jews.
feel
We are
sorry.
not billions of Jews. Okay, just
No, but people are curious to see Jewish, and you go to Toledo, you find the Jewish stuff there, you find traces. People are fascinated when they go even to the Transito synagogue, they're fascinated by Jewish heritage. So they're kind of proud of it. In fact, 17 cities in Spain have a special stamp that says Sephardic, whatever, and they had Hebrew names on the right and left and so on, and they restorating the mikvehs, the synagogues and so on, no problem. So it's done. There is some kind of love-hate, and this is not particular to Spain.
Spain.
Poland is the same. Love-hate, admiration of the Jews, at the same time jealousy, all kinds of things. But there is two streams in Spain. There's one stream in Spain where they see the Jews, like in 19th century, when the Council of Spain did one, found people speaking Spanish, Old Castilian, and Old Aragonian in Salonika and so on. It was a discovery for them. It was unbelievable. And even Franco, he didn't save the Jews, but he didn't let Hitler do what he wanted in Spain.
Yeah.
And Franco allowed Jews to escape to America. He also, many times, they knew that Sephardim in Israel and so on during 6-day war, they said, if there's problems, refugees will take them because Sephardim are Jews from Sephardic origin are Spanish citizens. So they are proud of it. They know the culture, the Ladino, the Haikati, the Judaismo, Geo-Spanish, and always they're very proud of his heritage. Although, it's those are dying languages, definitely. At the same time, I would say it's a very Catholic country, and there is some problems there of, a special attitude toward Jews that has never been completely erased. But you find both ways. But generally, people are sympathetic. I would say, from what my last trips, I would say there was no problem. But you can find, as you would say, a guide that tells you stories about Jews and money on the right and left. Yeah.
In 1992, I happened to have been in Spain, and I was there in the month of September. And so I went to celebrate or take part in the Jewish holidays in the Central Synagogue of Madrid. So I was there for Rosh Hashanah. And if you recall, 1992 was a very special year. They were celebrating the 500th anniversary of the Edict of Expulsion of Jews. And there came the King of Spain in the synagogue and gave a little talk about Spain repelling the order of expulsion of Spain. So I happened to have been there at the moment when the king came and addressed the Kahal during Rosh Hashanah to talk about the repulsion of the edict of expulsion.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Do you
would
remember
like to
Rose?
add something.
Second, just on that, Alan Rose, who was a director of National Director of Jewish Congress. He grew up in London, and in 1992, he told me he was invited to visit the King of Spain, and it was a protocol visit. He had exactly 4 minutes to go to the king and say on this and that, coming from Canada for 1992. And he addressed the king in Ladino. And the king was amazed. The king canceled all the meetings, listened to him, and the king was crying for 3 hours.
Wow.
It was absolutely amazing when he discovered the richness of the culture and the Jews and so on. The king was very, very moved. And Alan Rose also was very moved when he told me that. Interesting story.
I would like to add, a few years ago, we invited Professor Algor de Sousa from McGill to speak to us about the Jews of Portugal, to Women Learning Group. It happened the consul of Portugal heard about it from our friend Archibald, who was at that time the president of the synagogue, and he happened to meet the consul of Portugal, and he asked us to invite him. So we invited the consul of Portugal at the same time that Professor Algor de Sousa spoke about the Jews of Portugal. That was at Women Learning Group. Then the synagogue, the following Saturday, invited the consul of Portugal and the consul of Spain. So we had both of them on Saturday during our prayer. It was very nice to see them following the speech at the Women Learning Group.
Yes, no, so things change from time. Things change, definitely.
Beautiful.
Okay.
My wife said goodbye.
Okay, I would like to thank you so much, Professor David Ben-Susan.
Andre had a question.
I would like to know, Monsieur Ben-Susan, if you're still teaching. I would like very much to go and listen to you wherever you are.
I'm teaching electronics.
Oh, no. I'm talking about history, Yeah.
No, I give a lot of lectures around the world. In fact, I just received an invitation to go to London and give talks about Moroccan Jewish heritage for a few days. So I do that all over the world, but my profession is electronics. I'm teaching at university. Okay.
Thank you.
This is a sidekick of mine.
Dr. Ben-Susan, can you
Oui.
hear me?
Oui.
Yes.
You mentioned that it would be a whole nother lecture on Christopher Columbus and his origins. I hope Gladys will seize the opportunity. Will you, Gladys, to have you speak to us about that in a separate lecture? Just
That
a
will be
thought.
wonderful.
I would gladly do, but you know, I have a lot of information. I have around 1,200 books at home. I have seen a lot of information. It will take more time to gather the information to make something coherent. I can think of it, not immediately, but later on, why not? It's possible.
We have until winter.
In time.
We always learn a lot from Dr. Ben-Susan. In fact, every week he sent us letter with so much information. We never miss to read what you send us. It's beautiful.
Amazing. Yeah.
Most of us receive this letter, and it's never enough for us. Whatever we hear in the news, but it is very special what we hear it from Dr. Ben-Susan, because it is exactly what we need to hear, and we learn a lot. I would like to thank you so much. What a beautiful, you worked so hard for this presentation. And I feel like you took us with you to Spain. These are the places that we were dreaming to see. And you did the dream of Rabbi Joseph Zechrono Lebracha. He wanted so much to take us there, and I tried to help him, but something didn't work. And just showed it to us like in a very lively way, as if we were really there. Even if we went there, we wouldn't be able to take you with us.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I have so many presentations. I thought mixed. I didn't have the English presentation to show you. It was French.
Oh, that's fine.
That's
fine.
So you had bilingual. Somebody else bilingual.
No,
so
it was beautiful.
probably.
Can I ask you? You said that we used to, in the Spanish till 1867, we were doing services in Portuguese.
Sermons.
Sermons. So
Speeches.
okay. So like David Hart and, Abraham de Sola and all, they
Yeah,
knew.
yeah, they knew Portuguese.
Oh
They were.
my gosh, that is such an interesting thing to know. I'm going to share it with all my fellow congregants.
You know, a lot of people wanted to come to listen to you, but they couldn't, and they asked me if we have recording.
Yeah,
They
I
will
wouldn't
email.
put it on the
Please.
website. I would send it
Yes,
privately,
to Gladys.
and ask them not to put it on the internet.
Yes.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
why I wrote not
Viola-
personnel, because
Viola,
there were 3 or 4 pictures there that don't belong to me. And if it's on the internet, I'm very careful because
it's okay. We respect your request.
Thank you.
Viola, when she will do it, she will send it to me, and I will send it to the woman.
Yes, thank
And
you.
she can also send it to the whole synagogue because they want to see, they want to hear you. They couldn't come. A lot of people couldn't
Okay,
come.
again, take what I said into consideration to avoid.
Yeah, through the synagogue to the people. In fact, at the same
if you send the
time-
link, you says not to be put on the internet. This is private.
Yeah.
That's all.
We can even do an in-house evening or, Sunday morning brunch and show the film. And
No
people can come. I'm sure they will come.
Pleasure.
David, I have to go to another meeting. I just wanted to say thank you so much for this amazing presentation. I really enjoyed it, and I'm sure everybody else did so. So I'm going to leave the final word to Gladys. And again, thank you so much for being with us. À la prochaine.
Merci
Thank
beaucoup.
you, Albert, for being a friend to Dr. Ben-Susan and
plaisir.
for hearing from him about his research and telling me, and you invited him. That was a great thing. Thank
So
you.
Albert, hi, Albert, why don't we invite Mr. Ben-Susan to the synagogue?
He comes quite often.
For him to tell us about history, the history of the Jews.
We'll work on that.
Yeah, but we are not doing now.
I'm invited for the Shavuot. I give a
For the
video
Shavuot,
lecture
yeah.
on the
Saturday night, June 4th, Dr. Ben-Susan is giving us a lecture for a little Shavuot.
And this
I
year,
don't know what time. You have to be there around midnight, maybe. I don't know, 11.
No, I think it's going to be around 10:30 or so. And each year I take a different theme. And now it's going to be spirituality, mysticism, rationality, and Kabbalah.
So that should be very interesting.
But
Do we have it on Zoom?
not
It's going to be. It's going to be. We're
But
planning
I'm
to
giving.
do this.
I'm distributing a paper, and you can have it. Maybe I'll
We
send
plan
it
to-
to
we plan
Albert.
to be in
Albert, I'll send you my what I always prepare
The
something,
source sheet.
a handout.
Source sheet.
You email
Yeah.
it to me.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we plan to have it in person for the first time in 2 years, because it's time to start again. But like David said, we'll send you the document by email for those who cannot make it in person.
But why don't you put it on Zoom? Not allowed?
We have to, it's a lot of logistics. Somebody has to work the Zoom, and we don't have anybody at the moment. Maybe we'll try and do it.
Anyway, my lecture is going to be very short. They gave me a room of 25 minutes or so, but if
Yeah, because the slots are half an hour, including question period. So if you want to come in person, we'll have a great time. There's going to be refreshments, and we usually go on till 1, 2 in the morning. So join us in the Antebi Hall. So we look forward to seeing you. We look forward to seeing you, David, on June the 4th. And in the meantime, Chag Sameach to all of you. I'm sorry I have to leave. Okay, bye-bye for now.
Thank you for all your input in the Women Learning Group. What did Rabbi Ornstein said? It's the Women Learning Group is plus Albert Herskovich.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Always were with us, and you always have helped us and supported us. Thank you for
My pleasure. Thank you.
2 years. And
Bye for
Albert
now.
gave us 2 sessions about Egypt. You remember? You
Yes.
gave us.
Thank you all. See you soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Albert. Thank you, Dr. Ben-Susan. That was a great session. You brought us together, and you worked so hard for this documentary. It's beautiful. Thank you. It's like we were there. You took us with you. It's so beautiful. And I am happy. I saw Adelia.
Yeah, she had to leave, fortunately.
Yes, but we met. We said hi.
Sorry, can I stop the recording?
Sure.
Yeah,
And
okay, so
we
just to
thank
be
you again.
clear, I'm not putting it on YouTube. I will just send you a link of the recording to you, Gladys, yeah?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Can I add something, Gladys, to your parting comments? Gladys, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, so what I want you to say is that besides the fact that we were taken to Spain, historical Spain, I understand all that, it was gorgeous, etc. I think what really is important in all of this is that history may repeat itself. Here we see, and this is the lesson, we were getting such a great lesson that the Jews contributed to the culture of the country, contributed, and that the Muslims did as well, but the Jews did out of proportion to their numbers. They lived well, they were integrated. I'm not saying that they were assimilated, but they were integrated. And all of a sudden, everything came crashing down, and it was a disaster. It was a tragedy. And then there was another exile, another dispersion, a global dispersion. It's history repeated itself. And now we wonder again, it's happened, of course, we had World War II, we had pogroms in Europe, and then we had the Shoah. And now things are on the rise again. American Jews especially are living extremely well. And now so many Jews in the United States, especially, probably in Europe, and the United States especially, their Americanism comes first. That's their religion. Progressivism is a religion. All of this is going to come to a climax again. This is going to come to a climax again. So I think this is the great lesson that we got from David Ben-Susan, the history of the Jews in Spain, and the glorious history, and then the tragic history.
Yeah. Thank you, Gigi. Gigi will do for us summary of the speech.
Yes, well, I'll try.
Okay. Send me the link too, please, of the if you're going to send the link to the lecture.
We will get the link and I will send it to you then.
Thank you.
I will send it to you, to
And
everyone.
you can cut the piece where I'm looking for the right.
God bless you.
PowerPoint.
Because I have a lot of people who wrote to me that they cannot come, but they want to watch it on the recorder. And I said, yes, we record everything. So we have to send it to many people. Now, at the same time, there was today a meeting in the synagogue, and the president wanted to come, and he told me he cannot come because of the meeting. I said, if you cannot make a beginning, make it at the end, but it seems he is stuck. So we have to give him. But the vice president, David Nathaniel, also wrote to me that he's also in the meeting, that he will be able to join because he is very much interested to hear about what you say. And so we all feel we are in the university today. And we got such a beautiful session, and the lecture, the speech from Dr. David Ben-Susan. Thank you so much. You always enlighten us, and we always learn so much from you, either personally or by writing, by emails. You never miss an opportunity to enlighten us. Thank you very much. You are a great friend and a great teacher. Thank you. And thank you all for coming. Thank you for joining us.
All right. Pleasure. Wow.
So next week, we are having our friend, lawyer David Murad. So please come all of you.
Alan Murad.
Alan Murad. I got used to say David today. So we have Alan Murad. He will be with us next Wednesday at 10 o'clock, the same Zoom information. So please join us. It will be a nice presentation, different completely from today. I don't know the topic, but it will be very nice also. He's a good speaker. Thank you.
Thank you and goodbye.
Oh, thank you all. Thank you, everybody.
Merci.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you all.
Thank you, Amy, for what?
For being with us. Thank you all for being with us. You give me, each one of you give me a lot.
Gladys, we thank you. You don't thank us. We thank you.
We thank each other. We wouldn't be together without each other. I do it for you, and this gives me the biggest pleasure. Thank you.